On my right, I have Dr. John Hammond. He will be the convener. There's myself, Marvin Waldron, I'm the chairman. And we also have Jesse, he's the timekeeper. Now, I'd like to start by introducing the candidates that are already here. And just introduce, or would you like to say something?
Thank you for coming. And before we start, we have 4 official candidates, but we also have folk here representing other parties. And although you may not be on the rostrum, you are very welcome. And we're glad to see you here. And if you don't get an opportunity to speak, because I think we will be pushed for time, you can go out to the foyer afterwards and you can hang up your placards. Can we just find out who they are? Paul, you are?
Paul, Family First.
Very good. Anyone else? Yes.
Andrew Family for that Legalised Cannabis Party.
The
Legalised Cannabis Party?
Okay.
Your name? What was your name?
Andrew Family.
Andrew.
You're both very welcome. We're just going to introduce the candidates, and I would have to say, in support of the candidates, they have no idea of the questions that they're going to get tonight. They haven't been briefed in any shape or form. Isn't that exciting? It's what we call questions without notice. So they need to be congratulated for their courage in coming forward. We have a candidate coming. So I'm just going to go through the list as I have them, and I'm going to ask you to make a 1-minute introduction of who you are. And I have 3 questions for you. And you'll get a buzz at the end of 1 minute to sit down. Where do you live? What were you doing before politics? And what is your most endearing feature? And Sue Ellen Bronson, trumpet or Patriots? Where is Sue Ellen? She's there. Let's give her a clap for a second. Sue Ellen, I'll give you the privilege, when you're finished, just point to the next candidate that you want to pick on and say it. It's over to you. Do you want me to repeat the questions? Where do you live? What were you doing before politics? And what is your most endearing feature? We can hardly wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry for being late. My dad used to say to me that I'd be late to my own funeral, and he's probably right. Look, I'll start off with my most endearing quality. I think I just love Australians. I love my fellow Australian. I'm a people person, and I think I've got a pretty good heart. And I guess that's the main reason why I'm here today, involved in politics. What I did before politics, I've had about a decade of experience in politics. I've been a national and state director for a political party. I've worked with Clive Palmer for over 13 years. And before my life in politics, I worked in the medical field, so I was a chronic disease management coordinator, because again, I care about people. So hopefully I bring something different to this role, always having worked in the background. And more recently, I've worked as the Chief of Staff to Senator Ralph Babette down in Canberra, so I get the pleasure of seeing firsthand how politicians tend to waste our money. And I'll hand over to my good mate here next door, Dan. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We're right to go. We'll start this.
Oh, that'd be nice.
G'day all, I'm Dan Repicoli, and it's a pleasure to be here as the federal member for Hunter.
And you're from the ALP?
Yes, I'm from Labor, yes, I'm the ALP. And I live in Nolkaba. Currently, we're just building a house right now in Nolkaba and currently renting up in Melbourne, so from the Cessnock area. I didn't grow up in the area. I came to the area in 2009. I grew up in Victoria, where I worked as a fitter and turner. I left school at 15 to become a fitter and turner, and I've been a tradie my whole life. Worked in the automotive industry, then came up and worked in the mining industry, and worked around, in and around engineering companies along the way as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to be the federal member for the last 3 years. It's been an honour and certainly a challenge, and one of the most endearing parts that I find in this job is just how well connected we are to the people of the Hunter and the people of Australia. It's an absolute pleasure. We live in the best country in the world, and sometimes we just need to remember that along the way. So thank you very much for having me today. Thank you to Marvin and to the CBCA members for putting this on tonight, and really looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts along the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And who would you nominate down the far end of the table?
We'll go Stuart. We'll just keep going on the line.
Thank you, Stuart.
Very orderly.
Your One Nation, Stuart Bonds.
Yeah, Stuart Bonds, One Nation. I come from a little town called Morani, so that's just north of Singleton, out in the mountains up there. What I do before politics, so I'm still doing it right now. I just got changed in the car park. I'm still out in the coal mines. I oversee shutdowns on 600 tonne and 400 tonne excavators. So I look after the planning side of that now, which has got me in the office, which I hate with a passion. So I shan't be doing it very long. I want to get back onto the tools. I guess my most enduring qualities, I'm a builder. So I love constructing things. I built my own house. I bought a property up north, so after I finished building my farm, I've gone up there and I've started building property up there and cutting all the timber down and cutting the old fence posts and building that and making that into a business. It's been very difficult, but the best things come when we struggle, I think, sometimes. So I'll hand it over to Sue, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. Sue Gilroy, you represent the Nationals, and we'd like to hear from you.
Okay. I live in Singleton. I've lived in Singleton since I was 13 years old. I grew up in the outback. I moved from Brewarrina, Burke, Warren. My dad was in the ambulance. So we moved around a lot. I grew up in Singleton, and I did my nurses training in Singleton. I actually did my mental health nurses training at the Morisset Hospital all those years ago. So I've worked in health all my working life in a number of areas, including aged care for 10 years. Then I moved on to occupational health. And I worked in occupational health for 17 years. Started there as a nurse, and looking after the health of the miners in the valley. So quite a journey. Ended up managing the occupational health facility and organisation for 8 years, and grew through that to then manage a big occupational health company. I don't know what, my most endearing feature is that I like to bring out the best in people. So I like to build people up so that they realise how much better they are.
Thank you very much.
Sorry
now,
about that.
I think we applauded you when you stood up, and we haven't done it for the others. Let's just welcome them all. Now we have a few procedural things we just want to run past you. You all look very refined to me and genteel people, but I'll go through the procedures anyway. One of the candidates here tonight are our guests, and they have shown the courage to turn up to answer questions of which they have been given no clues, and so we treat them as our guests. We'll be good to them. And the questions from the audience, they can be direct, but there will be no personal attacks on individuals, and I'm sure the candidates will treat their colleagues the same way. Now, if you want to ask a question, just put your hand up or stand. You're more likely to be noticed if you stand. And when you asked to speak, to ask a question, all I ask you to do is to identify yourself and where you're from. In other words, your locality. And your questions should be succinct and not be preceded by a lengthy preamble, which is a clever parliamentary trick that we're not parliamentarians. So the rules are few and simple, and I'm going to hand over to our president, Martin Waldrop, in a minute. He has 2 seating questions on behalf of the CPCA, because the CPCA has been working very hard in the local area for a long time. And the first question, they're both of national interest. The first question relates to national debt, the second one, cost of living, and each candidate will have 4 minutes. You will get a warning bell at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And after the 2 seating questions, we will throw it open to you to ask questions, and you will have a couple of minutes because we've got a lot to get through tonight. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you. With a national debt of $1 trillion and increasing, or nearly $1 trillion, we have an annual interest payment of about $40 billion, given that the interest rate is at 4%. This amount averages out to about $265 million per electorate if you divide it up evenly. Now, the question that we'd like to know the answer to, how to reduce this debt and make better use of our money.
It's fairly simple. Now we'll start up at this end of the table with you, Sue Ellen, and for the next lot of questions, we will reverse the order. Thank you.
Look, thank you very much. The United Australia Party, in my view, is the only party who has a plan to address our $1 trillion of debt. Now, $1 trillion of debt means that the government has been mismanaging your money. And $1 trillion of debt equates to about $30-odd billion in interest repayments. Now, a national debt means that there are less services that the government can provide to its people and its community. And what I quite often hear on the election campaign trail is lots of promises that are made without a financial plan to keep them. Now, the Trumpet of Patriots has a policy to address our national debt, and that is a simple one. It is establishing a 15% export licence fee on every tonne of iron ore that we sell to the Chinese. It's a very, very simple formula. 80% of all of the iron ore that is purchased from Australia goes to China. China cannot buy the resource that they need really from anywhere else in the world. We are the main exporter, we are the main supplier of the iron ore. Now, back in 2015, the Chinese decided not to sign on to the Paris Climate Agreement because the president at the time said that they were a developing nation. And fast forward to 9 years later, they are a manufacturing mega superpower. And indeed, a lot of the businesses that have gone bust in this country is because China have swamped us with products. With everything that they make, it just forced a lot of Australian businesses out of business. So to pay off the debt, to answer the question, we have a great plan. It's a 15% export licence fee on every tonne of iron ore that China needs, and we'll isolate that money simply just to address the debt, and then we can use all of that tax revenue that the government makes to give Australians a better standard of living, better healthcare, better roads, better everything. That's our policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. We'll come now to Dan Riccioli. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question, and it's a great question, and one that I get asked on the doors many times when I'm out door knocking and talking to people around the place. And generally people are concerned about debt, there is no doubt about that. And Jim Chalmers has emphasised responsible economic management and reducing our structural deficit, and that is what we have been trying to work on over the last 3 years. And in that time we had the first surplus in 15 years in the 2022-2023 budget that we got that, and we delivered a $22 billion surplus. That was the very first one in 15 years, and the opposition had spoken about having a change in their circumstances every year for 10 years. So it was fantastic that we got to get one of those in, and then we brought it in with a second surplus as well in the next budget. And so we're the only government in the last 15 years that has been managed to be able to get us into a surplus, which is a huge thing, which helps reduce our debt, helps reduce our interest rates, and we'll continue to help doing that and working with that, and have the physical responsibilities that we have in our roles to try and do the best for Australians, whilst also working with some of the cost of living measures that we're working with right now, which I know will get that question soon, but we've got to work with what we've got, and we've got to make sure the Australian economy is doing the best it can in the state that it really is now. So we've boosted revenue, we've had higher commodity prices and stronger job market. We've helped Labor deliver better than expected budget outcomes as well, so which has been great. We've created over 1 million jobs since coming into government, and this all helps with our debt. And along the way, we'll continue to keep pushing this and continue to keep trying to have responsible debt management, and we will keep doing that along the way. And as a Labor government, we'll hopefully keep working towards getting surpluses along the way as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. We come down to... When the chairman wants to ask a question, he asks the question.
A question for Dan. You've been having a lot of surpluses, so you say. How come you've still got a debt of $1 trillion? How are you going to reduce that debt?
So we started, when we came to government, we had a debt of $1 trillion. So we have had surpluses over the last two years. There's no doubt about that. The budget papers show that. We're the only government that has surpluses in the last 15 years. And we will be going into more debt again after this, and we know that. The budget had came out on that. There's no doubt about that. So, but what we'll continue to do is try and work with commodities, get the commodity prices up, try and make sure the labour market is in the right area, and continue to sell what this country has, which is fantastic resources and fantastic trades and services, and sell our people. We do really well with what we have in this country, and we'll continue to work with them into the future.
Thank you. We now move down to you, Stuart, from One Nation. Thank you.
Perfect. Is this, that's any better? I don't know. Look, this is probably my favourite topic, actually. Look, I believe that the national debt is probably the biggest threat to the national security that we have. If you look back over time, the history is just littered with civilizations that have just printed themselves into oblivion. Because the thing about money is you cannot print your way to prosperity, and you cannot tax your way to prosperity. Prosperity comes from people that build, people that run businesses, people that borrow money and take chances. There are people in this room that have created this business for them. And you've got to remember that the government is a luxury, right? The government and the services that it puts on creates nothing. It does not create wealth. It redistributes wealth. So, just let me go through this list quickly. We are the 15th largest GDP in the world. Right? We are the 22nd largest exporter on earth. Right? We are the largest exporter of iron ore. We are the largest lithium exports. 46 of the world's lithium comes from Australia. Largest exporter of zinc, largest exporter of barley. We are largest exporter of bauxite, largest exporter of natural gas. We are the largest supplier of sheep, believe it or not. 49% of the sheep supply come from Australia. We are the largest supplier of opals, 90%. Manganese, right? We're second only to Brazil with cattle. Second largest exporter of gold on earth. We are the third largest exporter of copper, second largest of uranium, fifth largest exporter of silver, 8th of aluminium, and the 26th largest exporter of oil. You could not have ended up with this sort of a debt without serious mismanagement, corruption, under the table deals. We have sold our gas out, right? We couldn't have, we might as well have given it away. We're getting a couple of $1 billion out of a $100 billion export. Like, it is sad, it is a disgrace. And have a look at our income tax, the highest portion of any the OECD countries in the world. Our living standards have gone backwards more than anyone else, our OECD countries in the world. Our dollar is the Australian peso, I now refer to it as. We're down to 60 cents, right? The US, we're under the 60 cents. Gold has gone from $1,500 an ounce over the last few years to $5,000. That is the sort of depreciation that we've seen of our currency under these two governments. So there needs to be a serious, and we need to cut. We need to cut services. When you have services growing like the NDIS at 8% a year, you cannot control that. That's an exponential growth. The economy's growing at 2%. Eventually it will just overtake everything. But we cannot keep going down the road that we are. And yet the plan for the next 10 years is to do exactly what we have been. And we're going over a cliff, and we're going over it fast. So there needs to be cuts, right? Serious cuts, and you cannot and will not grow the economy if you do not get the energy under control. Businesses do not come, you do not build electricity in the grid when there's a demand from the businesses. You've got to have excess supply of electricity, and then companies will say, we'll move over there because their electricity is cheap. We can't build and attract companies doing what we're doing. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. And Sue Gilroy, you represent the Nationals. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
If Dan says we've had surplus, and I think you've already asked this question, why have we got $1 trillion debt? He says that the coalition created $1 trillion debt, but we also were in coalition through a global pandemic that was never seen before. So I think that we haven't had a global pandemic in the last 3 years, and we've still got debt, even though we've had surpluses. So I think we need to understand why we've still got debt if we've had 2 surpluses in a budget. There's been excessive government spending. I think we would all agree with that. That's driven our debt up. We all know that if we've got a mortgage, if the interest rates are high, it takes longer to pay off the mortgage. So to get our interest rates down and to get our inflation rates down so that we can get rid of that debt quicker is probably something we really need to look seriously at. We need to expand on our export market, and we need to support the exports that we already have. We have rich resources in our country that we need to be expanding into the export markets that are out there. Now, it's a difficult global economy at the moment, and we need to be doing everything we can to grow our economy so that we can reduce our debt. And the coalition government will actually work to actually make that happen and make that a reality so that we aren't in the mess that we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now give you the opportunity to ask a question. Just a slight modification. When you are nominated and you stand, if you just first of all say to whom the question is addressed. Save a few heart attacks up and down the road. Who would like to go first? Over here, your name?
Beth.
And you are asking a question?
I'm asking Dan Charlie a question. Dan, you mentioned the Labor government has created 1 million jobs. Can you tell us how many of these jobs are productive jobs that benefit Australians, and how many draw on taxpayers' money and employ public servants in Canberra?
1 minute responses.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Every job that's in Australia is a productive job. Whether you're a public servant in Canberra, whether you're a cleaner at Macca's, or whether you're a mine manager at a mining company right here, every job is a productive job. Every job is paying tax back into this amazing country. Every job is creating wealth for that person that's doing that job and their family. Every job is creating wealth in businesses around this area, around the whole of Australia, because every time somebody's earning $1, they're able to put some of that money back into the community. And that is what is happening around this country. And we will continue to work with public servants, with people in the private sector, with people in every sector, and make sure that we continue to build more and more jobs for people. Because every job is important, and we need to keep making sure that we build Australia and build Australia's future. And that is by making sure we have safe, secure employment.
What I was actually after was a ratio, how many
We've
public servants you
run out of
have.
time there.
How many public
Who will be
servants?
next? Yes. Yes, there should be. Yes, we've got to get a mic first. Yeah, I'm not surrendering this one. Let's give it a... Thank you.
My question is to everyone here.
No, just one person.
The One Nation, tax on unrealised gains on superannuation, will you abolish that?
I couldn't think of a stupider tax than that tax, unless it was the inheritance tax. That's probably an only stupider tax than an unrealised gains tax. We have too much tax. We pay too much tax. We're productive. For starters, having 12% of your money locked up into an account that you can't touch till you're 70, I think is a terrible idea anyway, because you can't be trusted to look after your own money. So instead of paying your house off now and reducing a few $100,000 off my mortgage, I've got to pay the bank 6% a year on that money because I can't touch the other money. But nevertheless, unrealised gains tax, I think there'll be a riot in this country. Canberra will have to wall itself off if that comes to the floor. You'd have to ask the Greens a bit more about that, mate, because my party would not support that whatsoever, at all.
Another question? The express microphone, no, you've had yours. Another one? Yes, microphone.
I'm just trying to work out who to ask this to. My name's Eliza. I'm just wondering, I'll look up to this.
Name?
Eliza. With all the policies that are going up, that's why I'm here tonight, to see what the policies have been for everyone around here at the moment. Because I don't know if it's a state, federal kind of thing, but I feel it's all together a bit of a mess. So I've got the high needs child, the education department. I've sent him to a smaller school to get the help that he wasn't getting in the other schools. And I just want to know that the NDIS program, which has helped him go from a non-verbal boy to speaking some things, so I'm very grateful for it. But I also feel like having to be able to work, be on NDS means, and we find that the infrastructure is not being done on developments, and I feel that's what's contributing to the schools having to lose a teacher, even because the numbers in this area of a small school are not met. So is that something that's your policy, and to review the NDIS?
Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza. Your struggle is really seen right around the country. Young families, young mothers, and Australia's most vulnerable should be helped. Our party believes in not leaving anybody behind. But what has happened at a federal level with the NDIS has been enormous fraud. Enormous fraud. In recent days, there was a whole host of NDIS providers that have popped up overnight. Now, the good providers do a tremendous job. The unscrupulous providers are there to basically steal taxpayer dollars and take it away from people who desperately need it and deserve it. There was a case just recently of a fellow who had changed NDIS providers. They were allegedly paying his rent and stopped paying his rent on the house that he lived in. Now, that's absolutely, it's dreadful and it's a scam, but what the government isn't doing is cracking down on these unscrupulous providers, and that's just a classic example of government waste. So if we really manage it better, you get what you deserve.
Now, I broke my own rules by allowing you a bit more time, but you were speaking from the heart, and thank you for the question. I'm just wondering if I can shut my phone up. My wife's been in hospital for 6 months and she's been
John, could I just add a comment to Eliza's question?
Yeah, be quick. Go ahead, please.
Eliza, thank you for your question. And I too have personally been touched by NDIS. I have a grandson who has cerebral palsy, and through NDIS and early intervention, he is now a fully functioning child. So I feel you and I hear you, but the NDIS hasn't been managed well. It needs to be available for the people who need it, like your son and my grandson, and it needs to be there for those people so that they can get the services that they need, so that they can recover and be functioning in our society as well as they possibly can with the help they can get. But it needs to be tightened up. The people are taking advantage of it, particularly providers, and even, I hate to say it, some participants. So yes, we do need to look at it, but it certainly needs to be a service that we provide for people like your son and like my grandson.
Okay, just keeping an eye on the clock there. Thank you for that. We need to now move on to seating question number 2, and Marvin.
Right, this question is, as you already know, is about the cost of living. The situation in which the cost of basic things needed for life, such as food and fuel, is rising much faster than people's incomes. There are many people in Australia saying they are feeling the pinch of cost of living. What plans do you have to solve the cost of living crisis? That's the question.
Restart this.
Thank you so much. You know, I've knocked on 10,000 doors, probably more than that, since January. And the thing that I hear the most every single time I knock on a door is that they're struggling. I had a young mum tell me that they'd had to move back in with her parents. They were both working, they had 2 children, they had their own home, but because of the rising cost of living, their standard of living had dropped because they were struggling and they had to move back in. So what we will do as a coalition, that's just not working. What we will do as a coalition, as soon as Parliament meets, we will reduce the fuel tax or the fuel excise by 25 cents per litre. Now we all know in regional areas we rely on our vehicles every single day. And that's a huge cost saving for any family who has a vehicle. Often in regional areas we have more than one. We might have 2. We've got teenage kids, we've probably got 4. So big savings, but also that cost also translates to cost savings in transport. And we have cities that are a long way apart in Australia, and that's how we transport our goods to our supermarkets. So the costs are then translated into savings in the supermarket because of the cost for transport. The other thing we'll do is look at the rising power bills that we've all got. I got mine a few weeks ago. I looked at it and thought, how are people paying these? Because of renewables, the renewables only plan that Labor have in place, that's costing us all more I think our power bills have gone up sometimes $1,300, will introduce a mixed, diverse energy grid that pushes down the price of energy, so that then that translates to people's savings in their hip pocket, as well as addressing the housing crisis by looking at building more housing, limiting migration, and actually making finance more available to our young people.
Thank you, Sue. And Stuart, it's your turn again.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot if I'm standing up. Look, the cost of everything, this is a result of just printed money, right? It's a story as old as time. If you print money, you devalue the money that's already out in the economy. And it's not immediate, and that's why a lot of people, they'll blame supermarkets and they'll blame producers and they'll blame ingredient shop owners and they'll go and blame everybody else except blaming the people that are responsible, which are the people that printed all the money, right? And so, unless we pay down this debt, which is going to pull money out of the economy and get rid of it, we're not going to deal with this problem. We're going to deal with this inflation forever. And you've got to look at it as, it's not, house hasn't increased in value, right? It's the same house. It's actually should have decreased in value, but because of the inflation that's there, your money's just lost value. You can just buy less of everything with your money. Like the classic gold example, it's called the canary in the coal mine for a reason, because everything's weighted against an ounce of gold. So your money has just lost an extraordinary amount of value. Now, we do have a way of getting this debt, the cost of living down. One of the biggest things is immigration. We need to turn the tap off. If you're sitting in the bath and it's overflowing, you don't decide to start to build the side of the bath up, right? It's already overflowing. You turn the tap off, and then you deal with what's in the bath, and then you go on and fill the rest of the bath up, right? We cannot take on this many immigrants. It is killing us. And there is no plan from the government in there to address this issue. Everything is fine on the Albanese front. Superannuation, we want to pull that and allow you to put your superannuation into your primary residence, right? So that'll immediately save, every 100,000 you'll save $6,000 off your mortgage, right? And this is all your money, remember, we're not printing this money. It exists, it is in super funds, it is in banks. We want you to be able to put it off your mortgage, it's your money. Right, we want to allow income sharing, so if your partner has a kid, then you earn 150 grand a year, all of a sudden you're both earning 75 grand, that'll lower your taxable income. We want to fully cut the fuel excise and we want to cut it permanently. We want pensioners to be able to return to work and earn, I think the policy is $40,000, it's not written here in front of me, but it's about $40,000 I think before your income tax and that, and it'll affect your benefits, right? So you can return to work, because people are struggling on pensions at the moment. They don't want to go back to work for a day a week because they'll just lose it out of their pension. Look, retired people are some of the most experienced people we got. We need to get them back into the workforce, and that will grow the economy, right? And again, energy policy. Energy, everything has a baseline of energy. If we do not have abundant, cheap electricity, we will never have a growing economy. It will continue to shrink and our life will get worse and worse and worse. And I just want to know at what point we admit that this is not working. Right? This is an experiment and it is failing. And at what point do you turn around and go, we had a theory that this was going to work and it is not working, you know? So, look, there's some of our ideas. Give us a vote and we'll see if we can get it to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. I love that little plea at the end. We move across to Dan from Children.
Thank you very much. And whilst out door knocking and talking to people all around the Hunter, doesn't matter which part of the Hunter I go to, whether it's Singleton, whether it's Cessnock, whether it's Cooranbong, whether it's Morisset, whether it's Toronto, whether it's Coal Point, everybody in this area is struggling right now. Cost of living is the number one issue that people are bringing up with me. And what we've done as a government over the last 3 years, we've done tax breaks for every Australian worker, not just the workers that get paid at the top dollar, tax breaks for everyone, from the lowest income all the way to the top. Everybody's got a tax break. We've given fee-free TAFE. For over 580,000 people have got fee-free TAFE. And that's getting more chippies, more plumbers, more lecos, more boilies, more fitters, more trades into our service, more engineers into our service, more nurses into our service, more aged care workers into our service, more early childhood educators as well. We've given cheaper medicines along the way. We've given cheaper childcare also. We've given $3 billion off student debt that we've wiped, and also changed and fixed the indexation calculated on student debt. We will continue to work with that. We've also given same job, same pay. That has created a massive difference for people around this area, for people around the whole of Australia, that has put up to, just from one side alone in the area, $10 million back into the pockets of those workers in that area. And that is huge. That is a big cost of living measure. And it's not just for people in mining, it's for people in aviation, it's people in transport, it's people in pubs and clubs that were getting ripped off for so long. And I'm proud to be part of a government that did that. We gave a pay rise to the lowest paid workers in Australia. We held up that $1 when we went through the election campaign last time, saying this is what we're going to give to every Australian worker, and we did it. And I'm very proud that we did that. We were part of that government that has made that happen. And what we will do into the future, we have a lot that we're going to do and a lot that we are doing. We're continuing more tax breaks for all Australians. So we're taking it from the lowest tax bracket, so that every Australian gets this along the way. So it's not just for the people in the upper class, or the middle class, or the lower class. Classes don't matter. This is for every Australian worker. Everybody that is working in this country will get a tax break. Every Australian will also get cheaper childcare again. Every Australian that is getting medication off the PBS, that will go down to $25 per script on the PBS. If you're a concession card holder, that'll go down to $7.70 and stay at $7.70 until 2030. This is all helping with the cost of living. We also had our $300 energy rebate that everybody was getting $75 off each bill each quarter. And we've continued that through, and we'll add another $150 to that to see us through to the end of the year on that. We will wipe 30% off student debt, which is massive for our young people all around this country. That is a huge, huge burden taken off them when they're going out of there, when they have their HECS debt, when they're doing all the training. We also have paid prac as well for people who need to go and do the prac that they have to do throughout their job to make sure they continue. And we'll also look at surcharges on all credit card purchases and all card purchases that you have. So there's a lot happening in this space, and I continue to work hard, and we'll always work hard to make sure we're looking after the Australian people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And Sue Ellen Robertson, your Comfortable Patriots.
Thank you. Excuse me for standing up. I've been sitting down a lot today and travelling, so it's nice to actually stand up. Look, I think the most important thing that I will say to you all here this evening is that the cost of living crisis that we have relates to an energy crisis. The cost of energy, the cost of your power bill, the cost of transport, the cost of doing business has all gone up because of the cost of electricity. And the one thing that has changed is the introduction by the Labor government of their emissions reductions targets, their net zero targets. And what that has required, or what that has allowed, is the introduction of so-called green renewable energy technology into our grid. Now, our grid was never designed to take green renewable technology. Windmills don't always turn, and they have a very low capacity factor. So in order to attract that investment to our country, your government, and unfortunately Dan's Labor government, I think he's a good bloke, by the way, I just think that Albanese's getting it completely and utterly wrong. The Labor government have introduced these irresponsible schemes because we've signed up to the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, these schemes are losing money, and it's the Australian taxpayer that are giving subsidies to the green renewable energy companies because they're making a loss. but the government desperately wants them to stay here so that they can meet their Paris commitments. Now, I can tell you, as the leader of the Trumpet of Patriots, I want to put people before Paris. I want to put you guys before an energy reduction target, because net zero means 0 jobs, 0 money in your pocket and 0 food on your table. Now, the facts speak for themselves. 3.7 million Australian households are experiencing food insecurity. Now, I never thought that I would see that in my lifetime. They're struggling to pay the mortgage, they're struggling to pay the power bill that's gone up by about 38%. And the best thing that we can do right now, tomorrow, to help you guys immediately is to exit the Paris Agreement. Just like China's not a part of it, looks like the United States are walking back from it because it's hurting us. Why do something that's just hurting us and sending us broke? Businesses are going broke. So we need to exit the Paris Climate Agreement. We need to walk away from these ludicrous targets. And in my view, it would take about 4 years to build a brand new, clean, efficient, coal-fired power station, and we can get as much energy as we need back into that grid, and it will be a lot cheaper. And with cheaper energy comes more business, more prosperity, and a higher consumer sentiment. So let's get back to what we used to do. We've got an abundance of coal here. We've got the Mandalong coal mine just down the road that currently mines thermal coal, and it's supplied to a Rara power station, it's supplied to Vales Point. And they do a bloody good job at keeping the lights on, because when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, we're buggered. So thanks for listening to me. I think it's a pretty straightforward plan.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. Now it's time for your questions, and I have to surrender the microphone. Who'd like to go first? Go. They answered all your questions. Here's a mic.
G'day all, my name's Anthony from Kilburn Bay. I'm also a councillor of Lake Macquarie City Council. So we've heard from all the candidates in relation to predominantly federal-based policies.
Who's your question to?
Question is to all of them.
No. Just name one, and then if the others want to answer, we might give them time.
Sure, we'll start then with Sue Ellen. So, as I said, we've heard for federal-based policies. Part of your electorate as a local federal member, if you're a local federal member, is western side of Lake Macquarie. The area has undergone significant growth, has significant number of pain points, most of which, at least the council, we cannot solve. So as a federal level, what is your number one priority to support the local area?
Thank you for your question. Look, I have a history of being in local government. I was a local government councillor as well after having worked in the city planning department. So one thing I can guarantee is that local and state government generally don't get their planning done right. I think they have a very narrow view and don't generally look far enough into the future when it comes to their planning, and certainly around critical infrastructure like sewerage, water and power. They're the types of things that they generally get wrong, because it doesn't allow for that urban expansion, and from a federal perspective at least, there are certainly plenty of government funds there to support that infrastructure and that new urban growth that we need. I guess we're there to do our part. We're more than just about main roads and black spot funding. I think that we've got a critical housing shortage, and it would be irresponsible of the federal government not to provide those the funding to support new urban subdivisions.
You've given me the opportunity to say to you what you will hope to hear. Will the honourable member please resume his seat? You weren't ready for that. Now I'm used to it. Are there any other... Sorry about that. a heart attack. Anybody else?
Yeah.
1 minute.
Yep, I'll be quick. Yeah, about that, what the councillor was just saying about getting the money into the communities. Now, this has been forced upon us. Now, you can do all the projections that you want, but if you introduce millions of new residents in a couple of years, right, you just can't deal with it. There's no amount of planning in the world because you don't know where people are going to live, you don't know what they're going to do for a job. It's impossible to do the planning that you want. So what I'm proposing is that we bring back to these areas a resource fund. Right, the resource fund that was taken away under Labor, but I say that it is expanded and it has the member for the area that's sitting on the committee, and you have each party is involved in it, right? And then the council make an application to it and they fund the local projects, the roundabouts and the stuff that they can't get the funding for. And how we fund it is we charge a 50-cent tax on every single tonne of coal that goes out of that port down there at Newcastle. Now that'll be about 0.5% tax, and it will give you about $70 million US a year will come in by that, straight into the Hunter, straight into Newcastle, straight into the Upper Hunter.
Thank you. Oh, hands are going up. You want to say something too?
Yeah. I think, and thank you for that comment. It's vital that we fund infrastructure, and thank you for your question, Anthony. I think the coalition government have committed to funding infrastructure as we increase housing, and we've done that to relieve the pressure on housing. But we've also committed to reducing migration so that it's at manageable levels, so that our housing crisis can be addressed. But the other thing that was announced this morning, and if you read the papers, the coalition have announced the Regional Australia Future Fund, and I'm going to read it because it's so new. Will deliver a guaranteed funding stream in perpetuity for regional, rural and remote Australia, an initial injection of $5 billion and receive a percentage of annual commodity windfalls until the fund reaches $20 billion. The fund is in recognition of the contribution of regional Australians making growing our national economy and the unique challenges faced now and into the future. So that fund will be whoever's in government. It still stands.
Thank you. Dan, would you like a
Yes, please. So planning in this area, Anthony, you know as well as I do, is certainly something that's a topic for everybody. It's a topic for local government, it's a topic for state government, it's a topic for federal government. And we'll use Mandalong Road as a perfect example. Mandalong Road has got the cash there ready to go from the federal government. It's been there since the 2002 budget, when we promised it that we would give it to the state government so they could go and work. The issue is the state government hasn't even finished their planning around this to be able to do that, and that's why we're putting our money into shovel-ready projects from the states and from local councils like Lake Macquarie Council, that we work very well to make sure that we are putting money into projects that are ready to go now. So it really helps infrastructure now around this area, because unfortunately Mandalong Road was sold to us that it was ready to go, and it's definitely not, as you know, Anthony. So we'll continue to push for projects that are ready to go and that we can fund straight away to make sure it's making a difference straight up, like the Singleton bypass is right now. It's well underway, and Muswellbrook bypass has been brought forward as well. So it's about working together, the states, about working together with the local governments and federal government, all working together to make sure this area continues to thrive.
Thank you for a good question and good answers. There's a hand over there. We'll just take two more, and then we really have to move on if you want to be home by 1 o'clock.
Thank you. My name is Gwen Wilkinson and I'm from Cooranbong. And my question is directed to Sue Ellen. It's easy to say Australia should pull out of the Paris Agreement and that the people should be looked for first. If we're going to put people first, should we not make a greater commitment to doing what we can in Australia with renewables for the climate change that is occurring?
Thank you, Gwen. What I will say is that the climate has always changed. I'm old enough, I was born when Cyclone Tracy happened in Darwin. The climate has always changed, It is an actual fact that the University of Copenhagen did some ice core drilling. They drilled ice core samples through the Greenland ice sheet, a 3-kilometre thick ice sheet. And what those ice core samples revealed was the climate was actually 2.5 degrees warmer about 6,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, our climate was actually hotter, 1.5 degrees hotter. So you are correct, the climate has always changed. But I do not believe the climate alarmism, I do not believe the globe is boiling. Okay, we have to live within our means now, and we should stop listening to the sensationalist lies coming out of the green renewable energy sector, because they're all making a heck of a lot of money off it, and I'll always put Australians first.
This lady here was to be the last, but you put your hand up and I shook my head at you and you gave me such a bleeding heart. I'm a big softie, but we'll do you right afterwards.
Good evening, my name is Julia.
Hold it closer.
Can you hear me? Yeah, my name is Julia, and my Christmas director is Sue Ellen. The question I ask is basically, are you advocating for the introduction of more coal-fired power stations?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely, because Australians are hurting and they need immediate help. So what I would suggest is that we burn more coal. Absolutely. We have the Newcastle coal measures right here in the Hunter Valley. Now the Newcastle coal measures are the cleanest coal that we have in the entire world. It has a calorific value of 500 kilojoules. When you burn it, it burns very clean with high heat. Now if we compare that to the coal that's being burnt in Indonesia, Indonesian coal is about 3 times less efficient, so they have to burn more of it. Now if we have a look at our gas reserves, we have an enormous amount of gas in this country. And I was pleased to hear that the Coalition are considering a domestic gas reservation policy. We need to bring gas back into the mix, and we need to instantly lower our power prices because Australians can't afford to insure their homes. So when things are that drastic, I think we need drastic action in response.
I'm sorry, we have to go back to the next person. We're really running out of time. But thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. I didn't really call place, but thank you anyway. My name is Madeline, and I'm from Warragul. I'm also a councillor for the City of Lake Florida, just like Anthony. I have a question for Dan. Dan, could you please explain to me and the audience here tonight what the Australian Labor Party is doing for women's health? Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline, and that is a great question. We're doing a lot. We've got a $573 million package for women's health, the biggest women's health package ever in this country. We've got endometriosis clinics that is coming into this area. There is one coming into the Hunter area, which is helping women in this area, which is huge for this. We shouldn't have to travel to Sydney for women to see the specialist in those areas. We have got 2 brand new drugs coming on to the PBS to replace the pill for period products and things like that. This is major life-changing changes for women's health in this area. One thing that I didn't realise until this all came out was the fact that women aren't treated like women when they go into clinical trials. Women are treated like smaller men. And we all know that every woman in this room and every man in this room knows that we are all very different and that you aren't smaller men. You need to have the things treated for you the right way, but we are investing $573 million in women's health.
Thank you. Thank you for the very intelligent questions. We now am handing over to our President again, and we are moving on to local issues, and these can be quite exciting. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you. So, there's two local issues we'd like to inform you about tonight. The first one is the need for a public hospital in the Cooranbong and Morisset catchment area. Now, the area is rapidly expanding. In 2021, if you look at the census, and that's quite out of date now, there was at least 25,000 people plus in the area. Now, the rapid expansion of residential dwellings in the Central Coast has overloaded Wyong and Gosford hospitals. Talking to the manager of the Central Coast Health District, he has informed us that by the time they get 3,000 surgeries off the waiting list, there is another 4,000 still waiting. So as you can see, that's very busy and overloaded. The other hospital is the John Hunt Hospital, which is 60 kilometres away and incredibly hard to access by transport and finding parking. It was suggested a light rail system be put there, but that was found to be unfeasible because it's up on the heights, and about all you get there would be a chairlift. A site near Morisset Railway Station is close to the M1 as well and railway network, and would be an ideal location for future proofing of the health demands of the community. Also, there'd be a benefit of nursing training. We already have Avondale University, which has a nursing degree facility. Now, State MP Greg Piper has made numerous speeches in New South Wales Parliament in support. This is a well-known community concern. It's been a long time in consideration, and to date, I'll give you an update now. To date, land has been selected near the railway station, just above the psychiatric Morisset Hospital land, so we've already got the land. The question now is, when will the urgently needed facility be financed and built? And we'll ask the question.
There are several questions there, and we'll start with Sue on the entrance table there.
So I'd just like to say something.
You already have.
Yeah, I've already said something, but in your answer, I don't expect all of you to be familiar with this area here, because it's right down the bottom of the area. So basically all we're asking for is an approach to the funding issue if you're elected.
In fairness to Marvin, these questions are garnered from the CBCA members and have been troubling us for a long time, and we are hanging on their answers. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually met with the Sunshine Progress Society a couple of weeks ago, and this was one of the things that came up. Look, healthcare is vital to all our communities, and the sentiment I get from the west side of the lake is that we've been forgotten, that nothing happens out here, we don't see anybody, we don't hear from anybody, and we don't get any funding. I hear it over and over again. For me, as the coalition, we would look seriously at how we resolve this. It's something that I have to become familiar with because I don't know all the details, but it's something that needs to be done as a priority for this area. That would bring healthcare and accessible healthcare services to the west side of the lake for the people, so they can access them freely. I mean, we've got an ageing population out here. They shouldn't have to struggle to get to their healthcare. They shouldn't have to think about, how will I actually get to a hospital or a doctor? I work in healthcare. I work in healthcare every single day, and I know nationally there's problems. I probably try to recruit doctors every single day, and I don't I exaggerate when I say that. I literally call recruiters. I try and recruit doctors and healthcare workers all over. I look after 3 medical centres. So it is a problem, but the way that we've structured our healthcare system and our GP practice systems and our hospitals have made it more and more difficult for us to get these services into the regions. And it's something we need to seriously look at and fund so that we've got those services in these regions.
according to my sheet, which might differ from my instructions, I've been giving 4 minutes to the local issues, and I believe it should be 2. So, thank you. You got the benefit of that one. Are you ready, Stuart, to speak at Ross's speed?
Yeah, I'm ready. So I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but we are broke as a country, and first we need to make some cuts before we can do any promising of new things. And that's the benefit of being a Conservative politician is, you know, that's what they say, you're always full of bad news. Well, unfortunately, there's not too much good news in the bucket. Right at the moment, we are spending $44.3 billion on the NDIS, right? And I understand, like your son, there are some genuine people that really, really need it. But there's 600,000 people that are on the NDIS are outstripping more resources than the 27 million people that are on Medicare. So unfortunately, we could have, if you imagine doubling the hospitals, doubling the nurses, doubling every single piece of healthcare infrastructure that you see, that's the cost of the NDIS, right? Now, I understand that there is more care required for people that are disabled, but we need to cut the rorts. People are taking this system for a ride because it was designed with good intentions. And as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? You can't have a $45 billion program and not expect people to take advantage of it. And the way that it's been set up, there is that many invoices that come in that it's just impossible to check them. Right, so we need to overhaul this system, and the money that they pull out of that system, I would argue, needs to be put back into the Medicare system. But it does not matter what you do, we cannot train enough people to look after 700,000 new residents a year. You cannot bring in a whole Newcastle and Hunter electorate area, and Patterson included, every single year and expect to be able to look after them. It is just insane. It will never ever work. And I'll continue to say that. Pauline's been saying it for like 30 years. And she's been right for 30 years. So that's why I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but until we have some good news, that's all there is.
I've got some more good news for you. The chairman wants to ask you a question.
Okay, you say that we're short of budget, which I don't doubt that, but the question is, we badly need a public hospital in this area because the other hospitals are overburdened and it's very hard to get medical attention. So my question was, if you're elected, how can you help us get this facility?
Well, the proposal, I'll have to have a look at obviously the proposal that's in front of me, and I'm of no doubt that there is a need for a hospital down here because you see what happened up in Maitland, where they shut down one hospital and the other hospital was immediately overwhelmed with people. Right, there are too many people coming into the area. We've got, like I said, you've got to shut the tap off first. That is my first priority, and then we can deal with what we've got. I will have a look at what your proposal is, and I'll always push for more services and more stuff to come to the Hunter because it's desperately required. We're the poor cousins. We bring all the beer to the barbecue, and everyone else drinks it. You know, we need to get some beer for ourselves.
Thank you, Stuart. Now we move across to Dan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Healthcare is one of the biggest issues that I focus on in this area, and that's why we've delivered 3 Medicare urgent care clinics in this area. We've got one in Cessnock, we've got one in Charlestown, we've got one in Lake Haven. They are all within roughly 20 minutes from here. Not all of them, but you have one which is within 20 minutes from here. One thing that we did when we first came to government, this area is classed the same as being in Bondi Beach in Sydney. That's why we couldn't get GPs to this area. So we ticked that box, we changed that box, and we made it so we could be easier to get GPs and get GPs out of training because they had to come to rural and regional areas. And that was a great thing that we did. We also put the hours back into the GP after hours access clinic in Toronto that got wiped out on on Christmas Eve 2021. We put those hours back into that clinic and the other 4 clinics also around the Hunter area and Newcastle area. But onto the hospital. The hospital is a massive, massive issue here. The population here is large and it does need a hospital. And I will continue to advocate, working with my state colleagues like Greg Piper. Greg Piper's been calling for a hospital here since his first speech in Parliament House, in State Parliament. And I'll continue to work with my state colleagues because the state government are the ones that make the decision on where hospitals go. And then they come and ask for funding, some funding from us along the way, but state hospitals are funded by the state in general. So I'll continue to advocate with Greg Piper, with the other state members around this area as well. And I'll continue to push with Ryan Park to make sure that we can try and get a hospital in this area because we do need one. It is so important for this area. But we so far have done the urgent care clinics to try and help with healthcare around here so that you can go there just with your Medicare card because we know how important it is and how hard it is also to see a bulk billing doctor in this area. We'll continue to work hard to make sure that we can make health services accessible and we'll work hard to try and get a hospital in this area throughout the time.
Don't hold the microphone down. There's a question for you.
I've heard that there's going to be some more Medicare urgent care clinics. I believe there's 80 something, isn't there, in Australia? You've got one there in Cessnock. Can you guarantee that we'll get one down this end?
So we delivered 87 Medicare urgent care clinics. We promised 54 when we came into government. We've delivered 87. We are delivering 50 more around the area. There isn't one slated for here yet, but I'll be pushing hard and making sure I work hard to try and get one. I would love to see the GP after hours access in Toronto, turn that into a Medicare urgent care clinic as well, because that pretty much is already nearly there. So that will help relieve a little bit around here. The Cessnock Clinic has seen over 20,000 people go that have now not gone into the emergency department, either Cessnock, Singleton, Maitland, maybe not so much John Hunter, but definitely those three. But I will always advocate for this area to make sure that we can try and get one. As I said, we promised 54 last election, we delivered 87, so there's some room there, wiggle room obviously. So I'll keep pushing hard to try and make sure that we can get one in this area as long as I get re-elected.
Thank you. Look, healthcare, appropriate and adequate healthcare should be at the top of any responsible government's list. Now, whilst I acknowledge to Dan that the urgent care clinics have been a great initiative, they're a temporary solution to a very poor health system that is underfunded. So it's a bit of a band-aid fix. You don't want to be having a heart attack and rocking up to the urgent care clinic. Australians deserve adequately funded hospitals. Now, if we have a look at what they did in Maitland with the brand new hospital, it cost in the order of $500 million. And I've been there because my beautiful grandson was born there. And it's a beautiful, marvellous facility, and it's something that we down here could model ourselves on, or make that sort of a bit of a wish list for us. So have a look at the tremendous job that they've done in Maitland. We know it costs about $500 million. You've already shown a marvellous initiative in securing the land. You've already identified your site, and that's wonderful that the community's getting behind the project already. But you do need to lobby the state government. They are responsible for the delivery of the hospitals, but it can certainly be funded by the federal government. And how do I know this? Because Albanese gave $600 million to the Papua New Guinea football team. And if they've got $600 million for a football team, I think they can sure as heck find $500 million for a hospital for you guys. And I'll like
Well, thank you. I'd say to the candidates, tighten up the safety belts because we're going for questions. There's a lady here. I shut you down when you wanted to ask a question. You're first.
My name's...
Hi, my name's Tony. I just wanted to ask Stuart what One Nation stance on the climate change and climate action is.
An issue that's very close to my heart. Climate change, there's some people that don't care about climate change, and And that's the poorest people in the world, right? This is a luxury that people have, I believe, this climate change obsession that we seem to have in the Western civilization. And what's happening is that in the poorer countries in the world, they're taking our resources and they are freely burning the resources, and they are taking our wealth and our manufacturing. And they don't care. Xi Jinping, who was, his father was, killed by a communist government that he's clawed his way to the top of. He does not care what you think about climate change, what I think about climate change. He knows to stay in power in that government. He needs to provide his people with wealth. And how do you provide your people with wealth? You give them abundant electricity. And how do you make your people poor? Is you take that electricity away from them and make it a larger and larger cost of their daily budget. And that's what we're doing, and as opposed to what he's doing. So we are less than 1% of the world's carbon emitted from Australia. So wiping ourselves out completely and going back to living in rags, we will not affect the climate whatsoever.
I would just remind you, that's not a local issue, it's a global one. It is a local one, but we're at this stage looking at local issues. There's a gentleman there, you don't have to look behind you, it's you. And there's another one, you'll be next. He's looking behind you too.
My name's Brett Brown, and my question is to Sue for the coalition. Look, today we all heard Adam Bank come out, and we all know at the start of this campaign that they think that there might be a minority government. So Adam Bank comes out and says he's going to come for our negative gearing. I'd like to know what the coalition policy is.
Is that on the topic of local topic?
I think so. Everyone's got houses, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, who are you asking? So 1 minute.
Well, let's just go back to the minority government for a moment. And I think, I watched the debate the other night, and Prime Minister Albanese was asked if he would join government with the Greens, and he said he wouldn't. But I think it's fairly clear that Adam Bank thinks that that's exactly what's going to happen in the minority government. So I think we need to understand that to start with. So I think that, understanding that a minority government is not the way to go is exactly where we should be going. That's to start with. Negative gearing, I think, is something that we really need to look closely at. But I'm not really sure of the exact answer for how we're going with negative gearing or the coalition, because it's something that I need to learn more about. So I'm sorry, Brett. I need to just get more information on the negative gearing, and you might be able to help me. Can you help me?
No, this moment. Can I have the next question, please?
My name is Chadwick. My question is to Mr. Rapopoli, who is our senior member. For 3 days, the young practitioners, nurses and midwives in the public sector have been protesting without wage rises. Federally and at state level, you guys control the healthcare system. And we have 3 of the 4 most powerful coalitions of medical practitioners protesting without pay rises. What's your fundamental belief on that?
Thank you very much for the question, Chadwick, and it is extremely important. Doctors are important, nurses are important, and they are currently having a disagreement with the state government on this. The state government is the one that pays their wages. That's not done federally by us. So we've got no say in what the state government chooses to pay their doctors or nurses in New South Wales, or in Queensland, or in WA, or in Victoria, or in the ACT. It purely comes under the state government. And that's why some of these doctors and nurses are choosing to go to places like Victoria and places like Queensland, because they're getting better pay and conditions there than what they're getting currently here in Victoria. So, and I've stood with the nurses, And I've said to the state government that the state government needs to look at what they're doing around this pay and end this action. So I backed the nurses in the whole way here on this to try and get them a pay rise. They worked so hard in COVID-19. They were our saviours around the place. They did everything they could to make sure that people were safe, secure, and getting the best treatment they can. I think we do need to be looking after these workers, but it's purely a state matter. So as a federal member, I can't really comment on that as to how the state government would pay these people.
Thank you. Now, before we come back to you, you already have a question, haven't you? No, you haven't. We'll come back to you. Just going to show some slides, Marvin.
Yeah, we'll go on to the next one.
You want to come back? It's yours.
I'm Lee Rogers, Dora Creek. Given question asked, and how you plan to get traffic to the hospital, where the hospital is planned to go, because right now the traffic is horrendous, and that's without the 30,000 seat or 15 or 10,000 seat mushroom at the end of the road. But yes, we want a hospital. I don't know how you're going to get anybody in and out of there. What is your plan to put something under the state government to get the ball rolling so that the three of you, council, you and the state, can actually get it done?
Very good question, and I'm glad you brought up the Morisset Opera House, lovely little place. Whether it has 30,000, 10,000, 20,000, however many is there, I don't know how many is going to come there. That will go through a modified DA through council. But we, as I said earlier, we put the money in the 2022 budget to do the Mandalong Road upgrade. State government wasn't ready to do it. We were sold a lemon there as such because we were told it was a shovel-ready project. That's why we happily put the cash, and I'll give it to the Nationals as well. We both put in the same amount of money for that project to try and get that done because we knew how important that was for this area. So we're currently waiting on Transport for New South Wales to get that underway. And I don't know where the hospital is proposed to be here because the state government haven't came to speak to me about this. So until the state government actually find a site for it and they start to look at what they're actually going to do, we can't talk about road infrastructure there because we don't know where it is. And I'm sure Ryan Park in time and the state government will come and talk to us. But right now we're running blind on that, to be perfectly honest, because we have no information because they're not coming forward and saying that they want to do the project as of yet.
Well, we're talking about traffic. We're just going to move on, being conscious of time. And the next question.
Okay, the next point of local issues, which we've discussed for many years, actually since 2020 at least, we've been lobbying to get dangerous binge points along Freeman's Drive fixed. Now, I'm going to show 3 slides. Does anyone know this gentleman here? Well, actually that slide is a fake.
You can't tell, you did good photoshopping.
Is it in your eyes, Dan?
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm working with it. It's been in my eyes the whole time. That's one reason why I've stood up.
He's missing a front wheel. It's dangerous. It needs a wheel alignment.
Just to clarify things, that's a photo superimposed because we thought that would be too dangerous to send one of our members from the CBCA around to do that. That's why it's like that. So what we're talking about, these dangerous pinch points, are these narrow sections where the road needs wide because there's a culvert there. And we'll move on to the next slide. This is even a worse one. That's just past, if you know the area, it's just heading towards south towards Morisset. That's a sweeping bend there, and you'll see that it's very narrow on each side of the road. It's very dangerous for cyclists and pedestrians. And the other thing is that there's hundreds of people living down there now, down that way, in retirement villages. We've got 3 retirement villages. You might be familiar, some of them, the Catalina, the Rosedale and the Cooranbong Gardens. I'll show you another photo and then I'll turn that rotten thing in yellow off. This is a good one here. This is quite dramatic. This is just down by the fire station there. You can see the only part past there around the Billabong is that narrow section there. It's just too dangerous. And we're very glad about this because we understand that this is going to be fixed soon.
Yes.
There's been a grant given. We're very happy to get grants. Do you want me to turn that off now?
Thank you. I wanted to ask at the start, but I thought I was being rude.
Okay, I better be quick. So we've been lobbying to get these fixed up. A grant was given to the Land Macquarie Council, this is a little bit of history, for the installation of traffic lights. Money left over from this project, combined with a development contribution from the developer around here, amounted to nearly $4 million. The Lake Macquarie Council subsequently made a survey in 2023 to determine which community projects should be prioritised. It was found that a 420 metre shared pathway connecting Martinsville Road and Babers Road to the town common was favoured, and so it was given a high priority status. And that was in the same year, 2023, when they did the assessment. Representatives from the CBCA met with Asset Management at the Lake Macquarie City Council just last February and were told that this work would commence after this coming July, this next financial year. Again, recently, as just in March, an announcement was made through the federal government active transport program that a 1.6, or very close to that, if you want to be pedantic, it's 1,563,000, has been granted to build a 480 metre shared pathway between the town common and along Martinsville Road, along Babers Road and to Colonel Close. Well, we think that's great, you know, it's very well funded, and we're just hoping we can get some more funding because we'd like to get these pinch points fixed, and we hope there's enough money left over to do those. So, congratulations for getting the extra money, and hopefully you can get this problem fixed for us. So what we want to know is how you're going to approach this problem of these dangerous pinch points. Apparently that they say it's very expensive to widen these culverts. Can you get us a grant, if you're elected, to fix up these pinch points on Freeman's Drive? And also, a second thing, how will you consult what is your consultation process to the community so you can know which work should be elected?
Well, I don't think we need any questions because you've put it very clearly. I just asked the candidates, what can you do to help eliminate or provide funding to fix the pinch points? Anyone?
Yeah, where we starting? Yeah, where we starting? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't realise it. Yeah. No, we're not broke for this one. That's what I was saying. I think for these smaller community projects, and you know, they say all politics is local, and it really is. We need to pull some money out of what we've got, and what we've got is a hell of a lot of coal, and so we need to bring back these resources for regions. I didn't realise that Sue had that proposal there, which is exactly what I'm talking about. Hers is more global. I'm only interested in what's happening here in the Hunter. So as long as that's got $100 million a year in it for us, then that's good. And then what would happen was you'd have the member and you'd have representatives, so it's impartial, right? So you'd have a Labor representative, you'd have members of the council, and council would bring the proposals forward and the board would vote on that, right? Whether they thought it was a good idea, the council would get the work done, and then they'd come with the receipts, and then those bills will be paid. So it would be a hands-off type approach, really in the hands of the council and the communities. I think that's the best way to do it. The best form of government is the government that's the closest to you and where you live, because that's where the money's going to be spent, and that's where your money should be spent, in your local community. And yeah, there's things like that. There's things that have happened up in the Hunter. There's roundabouts that need to go in because housing developments have gone in, and we don't have this policy of build it and they will come anymore. We have this policy of build it after they come, right? There's no forethought. There's no forethought that we will need a roundabout here. We'll just wait till that subdevelopment's built and then we'll build a roundabout with the money from it. Will cost 10 times more, it's 10 times more disruptive. So we need better city planning, as Sue Ellen was saying, in the initial phases, but I think we can get the money for this.
Thank you. Okay. You were favoured with a bit more than 1 minute.
Minute 20.
As Stuart referred to, we used to have resources for regions which our current government took office. I personally was involved in a lot of that resourcing up to a lot of our projects in the Singleton when I was the Chamber President. And we put so much money back in from our royalties. Why don't we get it? And I think that's the first thing. I mean, the move for the coalition government to move to the Regional Australia Future Fund is the move we need to actually make this happen and have ongoing funding to fix these local issues, because that's what it's all about. And that's the thing, as I've gone around the electorate, you know, you've got some pinch points there that you just, you know, pointed out, which is so important, but it's everywhere. There's so many problem areas that need and have been forgotten over time. And it's through lack of funding, and funding that we deserve and we should be having.
Thank you, Sue. Dan.
Thank you. Just the resources for regions funding, that is purely a state government funding that got taken away. That's got nothing to do with the federal government. So I just want to get that clear straight away. And that $1.5 million, we've put that pathway, that's local government putting in for grants through us to the federal government, and us advocating and pushing hard to make sure that we don't get actually left behind. And I will always do that for our region. We've just had 2 bridges upgraded in Martinsville to make it safer there as well. And if council puts these forward as projects that they want to do, I will definitely advocate for them. It's just we need council, and the councillors in the room, we've got some amazing councillors here today, to put that forward, because if we don't get them to put it forward to us federally, we can't help them, because we can't go to council and say, we want you to do this project. Council has to come to us, then we assess it on its merits to see where it fits in and to see what it gives back to the community in that area. For here, safety. As we can see there, with old mate that had no wheel on his bike there, on his little scooter, we need to make sure we're doing the best to look after the people in this community. And as council keeps applying for projects like this, I will always help fund them along the way.
Thank you. Sue Ellen.
Thank you. Look, the management of money is very, very important in all of this. A local council can commit its isolated funds that they gain from land development. So I believe that the Johnson Property Group has paid a large, substantial sum of money to the local council in development contributions, and they should be isolated for road upgrades and for these road projects. What the federal government should be doing is ensuring that these projects are planned out thoroughly and that there are no hidden expenses, and that the funding from the federal government should be for a project that is ready to go. Dan made a comment earlier today to say that federal government funding had come across to a project that was supposed to be shovel ready, but it wasn't. So it's about just good management, it's about the funding being contingent upon the project being ready to go, and certainly that is the responsibility of the council to prioritise those projects with their community. And the federal government comes in and hands over the money. That's what we should be doing.
Thank you. You have been remarkably tolerant and a lot of good questions. Would you like to go for another 10 minutes? I'm just going to ask Paul, where's Paul? Is there? Can you come forward? And we'll give you 2 minutes, and then is it Andrew? Yeah. You represent, tell us who you represent, and you've got 2 minutes to win us all over.
I'm Paul Farrelly, representing the Family First Party, which is led by Lyle Shelton. Excuse me. I've been married to my wife Sally for over 32 years, and we've lived in Sydney for over 30 years. We've raised a family of 6 children. I spent 29 years in the electricity industry, particularly at Bayswater and Adele Power Station. And in the past 3 years, we've been running a small handyman business providing services in Sydney mainly. Just give you a bit of background on myself. Family First, you may have heard of the name somewhat. It's a very small party, it's been around a little bit and it's been revitalised at the moment. We wanted to stand for family issues because we believe that if you have strong families, individuals thrive and nations thrive. Sorry. Particularly this election, we would like to see power prices lowered. That's something we would be fighting for. And not to get into detail, but we believe that we need to abandon net zero, that it is not working and it is destroying our nation. One of the issues that hasn't been touched on tonight is some of the radical ideologies that's getting pushed in our schools, and parents are being pushed out of raising their children, and that is one of the things that we want to address. And also we think that politics should stay out of sports and women's change rooms. I'd just like to finish up, maybe if I could, with a question for Dan. So this is an issue that hasn't been touched on tonight, and it's a question that maybe 10, 15 years ago would have been silly. It should be simple. Dan, what's a woman?
So this is a really good question. I got asked this question by Laura Jays in a Sky News interview, my very first Sky News interview, my very first debate last election. And I had honestly no idea what she was getting at with what a woman was. I was unaware of where the question was going. And to me, a woman is someone who is my beautiful wife, who is my beautiful daughters, who are people that are in our society, that are wonderful, wonderful people in our society. We have different people in this country, there's no doubt about that. We have males, we have females. There is not a doubt in the world about that. But a woman is something that is so critical and so needed in our area and in this country. And I will always stand by my daughters, I will always stand by my wife, and I will always make sure I fight for them to make sure that they can get equal pay, to make sure that they can get equal health care, to make sure they can get what they need to get through life just like everybody else can. And I find the question very odd because we're all equals in the world. So I do find the question really odd, and now that I've had 3 years to think about this, I do just find it really odd that I could ask that question.
Thank you. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself? And you've got 2 minutes.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrew Fenwick. I'm a bit of an oddity in the room. I'm actually a Toronto boy. So I'm actually born and bred this end of the electorate. I've lived in Bonds Bay. I was born up in Toronto. Got married, moved to West Falls End. Got unmarried. Shuffled around a bit. Did Passy Fern for a while. I've lived in Jerry's Plains. I've worked on 2 power stations when they were being constructed. I'm an electrician by trade. I moved from my trade into the rail industry. So I'm also coal dependent in my livelihood because I've been hauling coal trains the majority of my working life. I did leave the rail industry after getting a move into projects engineering and communication projects. And I studied and became a medical herbalist and ran a clinic for over 10 years. And we grew that clinic to 22 practitioners. Global financial crisis sort of knocked that business on the head, and I went back to driving trains. So for the last 15 years, I'm back in the rail industry, and and only doing coal work, so I'm only working in the valley. I do come through here all the time to go to Aurora and Vales Point Power Station. Sorry about any level crossings you might get caught at. Any noise at 2 o'clock in the morning, I actually feel really guilty about that. But I am fundamentally local. My mother still lives in Toronto, at 90, at home by herself. 4 of our 6 children live in Hunter. 4 of my 5 grandchildren live in Hunter.
You're running short on time.
Okay, so basically I'm a candidate. I'm actually a real wildlife experience candidate, and yes, I do represent the Legalised Cannabis Party, but if I become a representative, that becomes a small percentage of the work I do because I have to become the rep and do the work for the rep for the locals. So that's me as a rep. And I'd just like to think that you'd see me as a rep who's looking for something good. The legalisation of cannabis is a net add to the community. $3 billion per year straight off the bat, just in the loss of cost and some extra revenue. It's a whole big industry. The hemp industry is hundreds of thousands of jobs around the country and billions of dollars just in hemp. And it's all held back from the 1920s prohibition from the southern states of America. And we're still enforcing it. And it doesn't make any sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming. We're just drawing to an end now, and the 4 candidates have got 1 minute each. And I don't know where to start, so I'm going to start with you, Dan, and then you can point to the next person. In 1 minute, will you please tell us why we should vote for you?
Thank you very much for the question, and I'm not going to tell people why they should vote for me. I let my actions speak words. I've worked extremely hard in this area the last 3 years. I've been to nearly every event around this area. I've been extremely active in this area. I have spent my time spread around then the 10,500 square kilometres that this Hunter Electorate covers. Now it has shrunken down to 7,500 square kilometres, which is really good because I can get around even more. So I've put the runs on the board. I've worked so hard for this community. I'll continue to fight for this community to make sure that we don't get left behind. I'll continue to work with all of our councils in the area. I'll continue to work with our mayors in the area. I'll continue to go out and talk to people in the area as well with whatever their issues are. My job for me is not done in the office. My job is being out, talking to people at their place, at their workplaces, in the middle of the street, because that's how you get the real issues and you really hear what is happening around the area. So I'm not going to ask you for your vote. I'm going to see what happens on the day and we'll go from there, just through what I've done previously in the past. But you've seen what I've done and I'll continue to work hard for this community if I am lucky enough to be re-elected again. Thank you.
If you like that, give them a clap.
I'll go over to you, Sue Ellen.
Thank you, mate. Look, I must say that I felt compelled to run at this election. I didn't have to enter politics. I was comfortably working as a chief of staff for an Australian senator. But having seen all of the hardship and all of the hurt, having watched the Australia that I know, that I love, watching this country that I've grown up in deteriorate, to watch our standard of living decline, our cost of living increase, I had to do something. I can only say that I will never give up fighting for the people. There's a lot of things that we need to change in Canberra. We need to bring forward a lot of common sense policies. And I hope that some of the things that I've said to you here tonight have resonated with you. And I just promise that I will do my best to fight for you and improve your lives. Thank you.
You've got the mic, so you go.
Thank you all for coming, firstly, in the business community that you are, that's propping up the economy, and I want to thank you all for doing that. Look, Dan's been a good MP, thank you, Dan. I think you've done really good to represent the area. I think you're just riding the wrong horse at the moment, but might be getting an orange shirt on you one day. Look, I've been earning more money now than I ever have been in my life. I thought if I earned this much money that I'd be rich, but I'm more broke than I've ever been, you know, and that's sad. And so I want to go down to Canberra, and I want to work out what's going on, and I want to make life easier for you and your family and your community, because I am a worker. I am one of you. And I would spend 80 hours a week probably in the coal fields or the hunter and out on the farm. And I am just like you, and I am feeling your struggles. So I think these guys are getting a bit detached down there. I think they need an injection of a bit of reality, and I think I am that reality. So again, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for hosting, guys.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the other candidates. This election's not just about winning a seat, it's about upholding your values. Right now, families are struggling with the cost of living crisis, struggling to put food on the table, struggling to pay the bills, even struggling to plan for the future. We've got record small businesses going to the wall, and they're really hurting. So that's why I will fight for practical policies that actually ease the burden on our families, support business, and ensure that hard work is rewarded, not punished. I'll be the leader that never walks in front of you, the leader that walks beside you. I'll leave my ego at the door, and I will ensure that I take my voice and your voice to Canberra rather than bringing Canberra's voice back here. I will stand up for my community, and if I don't agree with what's going on in Canberra, I'll cross the floor, because I believe my role would be to stand up for you and deliver what you deserve in the Hunter.
Well, we've had 4 official candidates and 2 who are welcome, and we're glad you had the opportunity. As convener, I just want to applaud you for coming out of your comfort zone, and each one of you spoke with passion. You clearly believe strongly in what you're standing for, and we just want to wish you every success. Unfortunately, the laurel wreath only goes to one person, but it's been our privilege to have you tonight. And I want to thank you people for coming. You've been really good. You asked a lot of intelligent questions. I want to thank Marvin, who has put in so much work and continues to put in a lot of work as chairman, and the members of the committee for the CPCA, who have really put this whole program together. So I want to thank you, and good night. I declare the meeting closed.